Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. This is my full-time show of Fulham's 1-1 draw against Tottenham Hotspur at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Let me just tell you, believe it or not, a little bit disappointing. Fulham played very well. I think that they should have actually won the match, but it's a 1-1 draw, and I'll be talking about what happened in the next 15 to 20 minutes. My basically instant reaction, my initial reaction to this 1-1 draw. Fulham played extremely well, and based on the play itself, should have won the match. Now, like I said, sometimes you get what you deserve, and I'll take the point, but there was an opportunity here to win the match, and there are factors why they actually held on for the draw. I'll be talking about that in just a little bit. I also want to mention, in case you are new to Cottage Talk, I also have a Cottage Talk Patreon page, so please do check that out on the Cottage Talk Patreon page. You will actually have extra episodes of the show, including a player rating show, many preview shows, interviews. So if you're interested, please do check that out. Okay. So let's get to it. And if you're watching live, please feel free to share your comments on the match. I'll be happy to talk about your comments once I get them. So here's my initial reaction to this draw as I started the show. Going into it, I know many would have said, take a point. I wanted Fulham to get all 3 points. I thought this would be a marker to win at Tottenham Hotspur, win at Arsenal, win at Liverpool. They played extremely well, and I thought had a performance that deserved the victory, but they get the draw. So you take the point and you run with it. I want to give credit to Tony Gold, who was at the match. He actually talked to me just a little bit ago, and he predicted the 1-1 draw. And he is disappointed, like I, that they got a draw because he thought Fulham played extremely well. But when you give up that goal in the second half, when you create all those opportunities and you don't take advantage of it, situations like this happen. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of supporters, and I've already seen the comments that Fulham need a striker. And Tony said that to me after the match. If we had a striker, if we had someone that could put the ball in the back of the net, Fulham would have won this match. And I tend to agree with him on that. I'm not going to say that I don't want Raul Jimenez, I don't want Rodrigo Muniz, but they need a striker that can comfortably score on a regular basis. Right now, they are just not getting enough goals from their center forward, and they need these goals in these situations against these teams that are better than them on paper. But Fulham played extremely well, and it's disappointing that they only got a draw. That's my initial reaction, that I feel like they should have won, that they actually should have won based on the overall performance of the match. So, like I said, if you're watching live, feel free to share your comments. I'll share this one right now from my friend here. He says, shows our need for a striker. We carved them open again and again, but no real finishing power. He follows that up by saying, Tony Gold would have been pleased of the lineup, AP not even on the bench. I'm going to be talking about that coming up in just a little bit because the starting 11 is something that I definitely want to get to. In fact, it's a good point. Let's talk about the starting 11 and the shocking, surprising news that Andreas Pereira was not part of the starting 11, not part of the bench, not included at all. Also, on top of it, I was pleased to see that you got to see the combination of Lukic and Berga. So they played together, which I thought was great. And I thought they played well. You had Emil Smith-Rowe as that other central midfielder. So you had the three of them together. Fulham carved open Spurs time and time again. But getting back to the starting 11, I just wanted to talk about the central midfield and the fact that Pereira was not included. And that might have been a surprise for many. What's interesting about this, in case you are not aware of this, Andreas Pereira, I believe shortly after the match began, or it might have been minutes before it started, put on Instagram basically disputing the quotes that were given to him by the journalist for PL Brazil. He went into detail on his Instagram page about that. So if you're interested in what Pereira is saying about his situation, please do check that out and make your own opinion on that. But regardless, Marco Silva did not include him in the squad. So that is fascinating in itself. But to be honest with you, if you look at it, I thought Fulham had a balanced midfield. And there have been arguments on merit alone that Pereira needed to be benched from starting. So for me, I think this is a wonderful opportunity to show what the midfield three of Berga, Lukic, and Smith Rowe can do. And I thought they did well. Smith Rowe was not as active as I thought he would be, but the other two I thought did their job well, and I thought it worked pretty good. You obviously have Tom Kearney coming on a little bit later. I'll be mentioning that as well. But those are my thoughts on the starting 11. I do agree with the move not to include Pereira at all. And I'm glad Marco went with that move. Now, we'll have to see what Marco says in his presser afterwards, but I'm curious if what he will say of the reason why he left Pereira out. I do want to share this comment from our friend Stefan. Our midfield has been the best we have had. Okay. Very good from Stefan. Okay. So let's get to the match. Like I said, I'm just going to be doing about 15 to 20 minutes, and I do really appreciate everyone that is watching live with me. And if you have a comment, please feel free to share it. So let's talk about the first half. And it started off very shaky. Spurs started strong, and Fulham had a few mistakes to start the match. You had that Bassey mistake, which almost led to a goal from Son. He probably should have done better. There was another mistake as well. But what's interesting about this, once Fulham settled into the game, you could tell that they were going to be dangerous on the break. Marco Silva got his tactics spot on in this match. He knew how to play against this team. He stopped Spurs from playing overall in the match. Overall, not just in the first half. In the second half, too, I'll talk about the goal, which is disappointing to give up. But quality sides score goals. When you don't score a goal, you leave yourself open to an opportunity, and that's what you saw in the second half. But if you look at the play in the first half, Fulham were creating several opportunities, several very good chances to score, and they kept getting balls in the box. The fullbacks were great. Robinson was doing his job. Tete was obviously as well. Alex Iwobi, I thought, was immense. And honestly, him and Jimenez had some really good chances to score. And I think that's the disappointing part of this. Iwobi's opportunity hits the crossbar. Jimenez had a few opportunities to score. And if Fulham scored that early goal, maybe everything is different, especially when you get to the second half. But I was going back and forth with a Fulham supporter on X at halftime saying, well, basically, I'm paraphrasing that it was an okay performance. And I thought it was actually a very good performance in the first half. They just did not have that cutting edge to get the goal. And that's the unfortunate part. That goes back to the argument that maybe Fulham need another striker. And I can certainly understand that because it was there for them. There were some wonderful opportunities set up on the break. And like I said, I thought Fulham were the much more dangerous side in the first half. And I thought the opportunities that Spurs had were by mistakes that Fulham created on themselves. Fulham's opportunities came from their chances. So that's why I thought they were the better side in the first half. Maybe others will disagree with me, but I thought there was one team that was the better team the first half. And for me, that was Fulham. So I'm going to continue to share your comments. This is from Steve Reynolds. He says, we have a problem or two coming up. Need Muniz on. ESR failed again, but Diop was good. And man of the match should be Bassey for going through the pain, etc. Yes, that's a good point, Steve, because at one point, Bassey goes down, and you're thinking, uh-oh, maybe he's going to come off. But he kept playing, and I thought played well. So I want to give Calvin Bassey a lot of credit for the way that he played and endured through any pain he was dealing with. So good point there. Let's see what else we have, and keep the comments coming in. I'll share them when they do come in. We want to certainly think we are a more clinical striker. We've have won that. Would have taken a point before kickoff, but can't help but feel slightly disappointed with how it turned out. Diop or Tete, man of the match. Very good. And please feel free to share who was your man of the match. And I'll continue to share your comments as we go through the show. Okay. So that's that looking at the first half. So I'm now going to transition and talk about the second half. And let's talk about Fulham started strong, I thought, in the second half and looked like the team that was going to score the goal. But as it happens time and time again, you give a team like Spurs an opportunity, they're going to take advantage of it. And Brennan Johnson, who was, I was going to say, I felt like he was missing the majority of the match, scores the goal, and Spurs go ahead, and it certainly was against the run of play. Absolutely against the run of play. But that's what happens when you don't take your chances. You can find yourself behind, and Spurs go ahead, and I don't think that they deserve to go ahead based on the performance of Fulham and Spurs. But this is what happens to the Premier League. It's ruthless. They score the goal. They go ahead. So Marco makes a couple changes, and the changes do work. He brings on Harry Wilson and brings on Tom Kearney. And Fulham started to create some chances, and not long afterwards, you've got Tom Kearney getting the equalizer. A great goal from Tom Kearney. Fantastic goal. So now you're sitting at 1-1, and you're thinking, okay. And I'm thinking to myself, Fulham definitely have a chance to win this in the later stages of the match. I totally believe that. Obviously, Spurs were going to make changes. They brought on several players, brought on Kovacevic. I knew he was going to be dangerous. But I still thought Fulham had a legitimate chance to win this match. That's how I felt it was going to play out. But before I go and talk about the red card to Tom Kearney, I'm going to share a couple more comments because they keep flying in. This is from my friend. He says, Wilson should be starting next game. Once again, his sub appearance was an eye-opener. We could have won it with 10 men because of his run and cross into the box right at the end. Good point. Right at the end of the match, you have Harry Wilson making that run, and he has a cross in the box. It unfortunately didn't lead to anything, but Harry Wilson played well. I'm still not ready to go there that he should be starting, but he's making his argument that he should be starting. This is from Stefan. He says, we settled in quickly in the second half, unlike the first. Very good. And Fulham have generally started slowly at the beginnings of the second half, as the announcers kept saying, and I knew that. But they started strong. That's why that sucker punch goal really got to me. This is also from Stefan. Wilson was a good sub. Tom Kearney too, but he blew it with the sending off, which frankly was a red. Stefan, thank you for leading me there. I'm going to talk about this because I spoke to Tony Gold after the match, and he was asking me, because he's at the ground and might not have gotten a good view of it. Stefan, you're right. That was a red. That was hands down a red. When you slow it down, when you look at it, at first blush, I didn't think so. But when you look at the replays, that's a red card. So he actually should have been sent off. That was the right call. It was unfortunate. I don't think that there was malicious intent involved, but I think it's a red card. I absolutely do. That challenge, he put his spikes in the back of his leg. That, to me, is a red card. And that changes the game. That absolutely changes the game. But that's going to lead me to talk about how this match ended. So you have that situation. We've seen Fulham fall apart when they've gone down to 10 men. And there was going to be a good amount of stoppage time. There was 7 minutes of stoppage time. And at that point, I think it was around the 83rd, 84th minute. So you still had a good amount of time for Spurs to get the winner. And Marco makes several changes, and I thought the changes actually worked to see the match out. So Fulham, I thought, defended really well. And like Stefan mentioned, you actually had the opportunity from Harry Wilson to potentially get the winner for Fulham at the end of this match. So good by Harry Wilson for having that ability to take advantage of that situation. Unfortunately, it didn't lead to a goal, but it just showed that he was looking for the winner. It's that mentality that we can win the match. And I love that Harry Wilson has that kind of mentality. So kudos to him. But bigger point is that Fulham did not give up and kept going to the very end of this match and saw the match out. And they get a point. And like I said, if the sending off doesn't happen, could Fulham have won the match? Potentially. But that's what happens. And as Stefan and I both said, I think it's a red card. So let's just call what it is. You go away and you get a point. It's not a terrible point. It's actually a very good point. But I am disappointed that they did not win the match. Okay. To finish up this show, coming up next, I'm going to talk about man of the match. And I will also end with any comments that you have. If you're watching live, feel free to share with who was your man of the match. Okay, to finish up the show, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on man of the match. But before I do that, I have several comments. So I want to share as many comments as I can before I do wrap up the show. This is from Stephen Murray making the argument that Harry has to start. This is from my friend here. He says, like you, Russ, I think the replay showed it was a red, but their goal was a disappointment. What was Bassey doing as the cross came over? I totally agree with you, my friend. This is from Stefan. Perhaps without VAR, he would have got away with it as a player gets up with any problem. That's a good point, Stefan. That's a very good point. But I think it's the right call, Stefan, and you and I agree on that. But VAR was the one that looked after that, and even though it went against Fulham, I do like that VAR is checking stuff like this. Okay, here's from Steve Reynolds, as we would say, that $1 million question about Andreas Pereira. Steve shares, did we miss AP? I don't think so, but with Lukic missing, we may have to start him. Okay, so that's a very interesting comment there. This is from Stefan. He says, Tete, man of the match. Let's see. Steve also shares Seth's plan. Defensive midfield was a first. Well, you got to do what you got to do, Steve. So Stefan goes with Tete as man of the match. Tete was very good in this match. I thought he did a good job. And so I'm going to agree with Stefan that Tete is man of the match. And like I said, if you're watching live and you want to feel free to share a comment, please feel free to. We will have a player rating show on Monday. I'll be back with Tony Cole. That is actually on the Cottage Talk Patreon page. It is exclusive to Cottage Talk Patreon paid members. It's a fun show. It's actually a really good show because we get to break down all the players and we rate them. We also rate Marco. If you're interested in extra shows of Cottage Talk, please do check out the Cottage Talk Patreon page. I do have a couple free episodes up there, but if you like the show and you want more, please do consider becoming a paid member. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Cottage Talk. Thank you, everyone who has watched and listened live. I really do appreciate it. Well, my name is Russ Coleman. Thank you, as always, for watching and listening to Cottage Talk, part of the Talk Sport Fan Network.